Welcome back to It Just Takes One. This is Kelly Watson, and it is a pleasure to have you here listening to the show. Today, it is my honor to have a conversation with Anna Meredith. Now, Anna is not technically the author of the book that we're going to be speaking about. Her husband was. But unfortunately and sadly, her husband, Adam Meredith, passed away on December 11th, 2023. Adam was an extraordinary man with an even more extraordinary story. And the message that he was able to share in the book before he passed away is so important. And now Anna is here to continue serving and sharing the message. The book itself is called Gone for 60 Minutes. And that's exactly what happened. Adam checked into a hospital in September of 2023 for a routine procedure. And just 2 days later, Anna got a call that she never expected to receive. In this true story, Adam actually suffered a stroke and was pronounced dead. He was gone for 60 minutes, and he came back. When he came back, he had a story to share and an important message. And between Anna and Adam and a wonderful ghostwriter, Rebecca, they were able to put the story together, and he was able to see his book published before he passed away. It is probably the most profound interview I've done on this show, one of the most profound books that we've published at Scriptor Publishing. I want you to hear who Adam Meredith was. I want you to understand the relationship that he had with his wife and his 2 sons and with his community. I want you to hear about his faith and about the faith that both of them have. And then I want you to hear the story and the message that he was given to share. And so to do that, I'm going to break this into 2 episodes. This will be the first part, and then we'll have a part 2 so you can actually get the full story. And I know you're going to enjoy every minute. So with that, I want to sit back and invite you to listen in as Anna Meredith shares an extraordinary story. This is It Just Takes One. One person, one experience, one moment to change your life. Anna, welcome to It Just Takes One.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
As we got on the video here just a few minutes ago, I said we worked together for the past few months, but this is actually the first time where we're seeing each other face to face, because everything has been on phone calls or texts or audio messages back and forth. So it actually was such a pleasure just to turn on the Zoom video today and say, hello, it's good to see you in person.
That was really, truly wonderful to see you, but I've only seen pictures of you.
Yeah,
but I've heard a lot about you, so that was helpful.
Yes, same here. And that comes from our mutual friend, Tanya Pershin, who was the one who actually connected us, and also Andrew Simpson, who is a mutual connection for us. Share a little bit about how you know Tanya and Andrew, and I know that will tie into more of the story coming up here.
So I've met Tanya and Andrew a few years back when I have 2 sons, Donald and Carl, and they play lacrosse. And we wanted to add some more conditioning and weightlifting to their routine, in addition to their practice and tournaments. So we heard great things about PFP, which is Players Fitness and Performance. It's a gym here in Frederick, and it is an incredible place because it focuses on the actual athlete, not only It focuses on the athletes, their goals, the sport that they play, their shortcomings, and their assets. And so we went in, and Tanya was right there welcoming everybody that walks in. And I got to meet her. And in Tanya's fashion, she just is a bubbly person. But what I love about Tanya is she immediately wants to know your story. She really, truly wants to know who you are. And so I just kind of give her just hello. Yes, I'm so and so. Oh no, Tanya wanted to know everything. And so next thing you know, I shared with her a little bit about what's going on with my husband's cancer and everything. And I noticed that there were books out on the shelves, and I wanted to know more about it. Next thing you know, while we were enrolling into the program, I bought her book. She is also a mom of two boys, and she wrote about mommying. And so all the struggles that a mom would have going through with teenage boys. And I was just entering that phase in addition to everything else. And so it was just such a welcoming topic. And she's so honest about her journey. But in addition, immediately, so I purchased her book. And the next thing you know, Andrew has given me his book. He wanted me to have his book. So I went home with the two books. I fell in love with them. I fell in love with the gym. It's what I love about it. It's faith-based. I wanted to find a safe place for our boys to be able to go and work out and not be in a setting where there are the typical women and men trying to present their bodies in a way. I just wanted them to go and work out and not to be distracted by outfits that might have been a little too daring. And that's the place. And it's spiritual and it's so genuine that it's just the right place. So Tanya and Andrew are exactly that. They're the face of it. They're the definition of it. And so it was only natural that Tanya and I became extremely close friends. And that's how I knew about you, because she published her book with you guys.
Right. That's right. Everything you just said, and then some, right? Tanya is what I would say, the definition of effervescent. She is that bubbling person, but a deeply authentic person, as is Andrew. And so their books are wonderful. Momming, that Tanya wrote, and Andrew has now written several. His newest just came out. The Unstoppable Athlete is out now. And he's got several others, but PFP is a very special place. And the connection that you made there doesn't surprise me, because it definitely, as I've gotten to know you, fits you and what's important to you as well. So we're going to talk about the book, and we have to start with the fact that this actually isn't your book.
Correct.
So the book is called Gone for 60 Minutes, and it isn't your book, but you're the one here talking about it. So let's just explain to the listeners why that's the case and what this book really is.
So first of all, this probably is the most uncomfortable thing for me to do. Everybody would be probably surprised to think that, because I am equally as outgoing and bubbly and love to engage with people and meet people and be around people. If you would ask me to speak on stage, even if it's something about myself, something about I believe in strongly, it makes me just throw up. And so speaking in a public way, or even putting myself in a public way, it's extremely uncomfortable. The difference is the book was written as a result of something that has happened to my husband, who was battling cancer for 3 years. And around 2 years and 3/4 of his journey with cancer, he was admitted to the hospital at Georgetown, DC, and for a routine procedure. And nothing unusual, something he had to have done every week. And as a very surprising, what happened was he became unresponsive and had a near-death experience during that time. And so, and we'll get probably deeper into this. So I'm actually speaking about a book that is about my husband's near-death experience and his testimony. But because he's sadly no longer with us, I guess it's going to have to be me to speak about this. But I want people to know that it's either my husband's plan for me to overcome my fear of public speaking, because he knows how much anxiety it brings me. So maybe that is his way of saying, I will help you. I will help you get through this. You just needed something really meaningful. I'm sorry. Something really meaningful to share with the world that aligns with you and us. And so here we are.
It's so beautiful. I really appreciate that honesty, and how many people out there listening that can relate to this fear of public speaking. And also, when it wasn't by choice, it's not like you said, this is where I think my life is going, and I'm going to be having to get up on this stage and speak and talk about this. So thank you. Thank you so much for just being open and honest about that, because I think so many people can understand exactly what you're describing. And I also love the idea that Adam is here beside you, literally holding your hand as you're doing this, to say it might have taken something big and emotional and worthwhile to talk about to actually help you overcome that and break through those fears. So that's a beautiful message. I do, obviously, listeners, I know if you're listening right now, you just heard her say that her husband had a near-death experience, and we need to talk about that, because obviously that's intriguing and people love to hear more about that. But before we get to that, I'd like to talk about Adam, because in the months that we started working, he was still with us. He passed away while we were working on the book. And the picture of the book is a picture of him as a young boy. So I've seen that picture, and I've seen the family picture at the back. But even though I've read the book and I know his journey on some level, I don't know him. And so even I'm interested to learn more about who Adam is, who he was in this world, what did he enjoy? What was he like as a father? How was your relationship? What was your relationship with him like? Tell us a little more about your husband and who he really was.
So obviously I can only speak on behalf of how he has been in my eyes, but I would confidently say that the common denominator about my husband Adam was that he was an incredible friend to everyone, and that everyone that came in touch with him felt that that they were their best friend, that they were his best friend, and he was their best friend. And which was interesting, because Adam was if you would compare the two of us, I would be the outgoing person. He was the introvert. And so he would probably not be as outgoing and create events and gatherings. He would rather want to be more on the more private way aside. But we would complement each other so well. We were such an incredible match. So So Adam and I met when I was 27, 28, and he was 35. So he actually was quite, he waited for a long time. He was a bachelor until 35, and he was in no rush because he said, I wanted to wait for the right person and I'm not going to settle. So when we met, it was just, we looked at each other across the room, and that's all there was. We looked at each other and we immediately knew, both of us. And everything went fast from there. We met in January, we got engaged in July, we got married in November. We had, we found out we were pregnant in January. I mean, everything went so fast because we knew. And so because we were also so compatible, meanwhile, we were very different. We had an incredibly different upbringing, different education, different everything. So that being said, we were an incredible couple, and everything about us was just perfect because we were just so in sync and yet so different. What I would say about Adam is he was an incredible, he was incredible with numbers. Numbers, if he could formulate everything in Excel formulas and Excel spreadsheet, that would be his ideal dream. Numbers were his thing, not mine. He was always passionate about cars. Cars was all Adam cared about. He knew everything about cars. But you would think this would be then the person that would have it all, he would always be in the garage on weekends and working on cars. No, not at all. But he knew how to fix everything. He knew everything about cars. He knew which cars were valuable. He knew the history. He knew when the models were changing, and when the manufacturers discovered, some hiccups. He knew everything. His passions were Porsches and Audis. So he had, preferably, I would say, German cars, but he loved other cars as well. And so he had always like a little mental list of all the cars he wanted to always, at some point in life, to own. He had a mental little list, and that is an important component because in his journey of battling cancer, at some point there was a moment where I guess he has come to the conclusion, especially during COVID when everybody was selling their fleets. He said, this is my opportunity to have my dreams come true and get a hold of these vehicles when everybody's selling them, and just complete his dream list. He also was very, his dream was always to become a pilot. And at 34, he decided to quit his banking job and put his stuff in storage and go into flight school and become a pilot. And that's when we met, while he was in flight school. And so he also, which everyone will tell you was the most amazing uncle. And so it was no surprise to me that he would be an incredible dad. He was an incredible dad. And so we were just very fortunate to have two boys. And he was just incredible. He was the dad that would, like, I looked through pictures, especially when we had to gather pictures. There are no pictures without him holding one of our boys. Always having the baby on him. He would feed them, he would change them, he would always be helping with them. I mean, the most hands-on dad. He had a way of bringing a message across to the boys that they would understand so easily and not have any issue with it, which that's usually my hiccup when I tell the boys something. They don't like it, even though the message is the same, but he has an incredible way to deliver it. And as a boss, he was an incredible boss. We moved to Frederick when he started a job at AOPA here, and so he had an incredible team of employees, and they're our family. They're genuinely our family. He had this magical gift that we always joke he could fire someone, you know, call the person into the office and say, "We're so sorry, we'll have to let you go." And that person would be devastated, but maybe not even too happy, but simultaneously it would be followed by, "We would love to have you and your family over for dinner next weekend." It's just, nobody could ever be mad at him. And he was really lucky. He would have he would just be the luckiest guy. He would just always he would just be very lucky, and he always knew how to fix things. An incredible cook. I have to mention this because that's the one thing I always joke we wouldn't eat if it wasn't for Adam, because he would always cook, and he's such a good cook. So yeah, he was a man of many talents.
He sounds amazing. Some of those stories are in the book. We talking about him becoming the pilot and going off to a completely new career, and about the cars. Even as we began working on the book, you were still, or recently at least, moved into this new house. Share a little bit about what he did with those cars.
So one of the things that we did throughout the journey, you got to remember, we found out he had cancer. It was in the midst of COVID, pretty much. So people were kind of all on the lockdown and wouldn't want to go anywhere. And we decided to do the opposite. We decided to travel. We decided to do things. We decided to live to the fullest. But one of the craziest things that we did, and I know people probably said it, thought it, and some have admitted after the fact that that's what they thought, that they thought we were crazy to have a terminally ill husband and then to go and build a house. But we recognized already by then that everything that's happening is decided and planned and already scripted by God. So whatever was coming and happening, we knew there was a purpose for that. And one of the things was that we got a call one day that in our friend's neighborhood that's been established for 9 years, there was a piece of land for sale, which is unheard of. There's no such thing. And that in our area, especially a large lot, a zoned lot. So next thing you know, we went there at 11 a.m. and we were walking, and Adam fell in love with it immediately. And by 5 p.m., we put an offer on the piece of land, and we knew we're going to be building our dream house. And we did. So while we were, and that's only was 2 miles away from our house we were living in. And so every day he would come and check the progress. But one of the things was that we had so many cars, because he has, during one of the years during his chemo, when he couldn't sleep at night, he would go online and just go to all these auctions, car auctions, and purchase. There was one year he purchased 14 cars. He sold 9. And because he knew so much about these cars, he sold it obviously at a profit. And he enjoyed them for a little bit. So we had so many cars while we were moving, we had to literally ask the neighbors to allow us to park them at various places so that we were able to have them before we moved. But there was just so many cars that he would have. But once he died, there were still a few cars that I just needed to sell or find a way to get it to the right hands. But we did keep 2 of the vehicles. which were his most special ones that I know I probably would never be able to sell. And so we did keep two of his vehicles that were very special to him. But yeah, there were many cars, many cars.
Did he pass down his love of cars to the boys? Do either of them or both of them have
Yeah.
the same passion?
Our firstborn is exactly like him, knows everything about cars naturally, loves them, knows how to drive them. He knew how to drive a manual Porsche, an older, since when he was like 10 years old. And so he is waiting to be able to drive these vehicles, which I'm not going to allow them just because it's not the type of a car you would want to give a 16-year-old boy to drive.
I'm sure. I'm sure, but I do think it's beautiful when you have a gift like that and you can share it, especially with a son or a daughter. That is really special. We can't go much further without pausing for a moment to talk about your faith, because even as you're describing Adam and you're talking about your relationship, I'm sure the listeners heard a couple of times in there that moment of knowing how quickly everything came together, even the moment, where you found this piece of property and this land and you just knew in hours it was all unfolding. And an element of that, as you described, is that sense and knowing that this is already prescripted, that the path has been laid out and everything will unfold as it needs to. And that comes from your faith. Can you tell us a little more about your own faith and how you were instilled with that faith in your life? Where did that come from? Where did you learn it in your life?
So I was born and raised in Poland, and we immigrated to Germany when I was 8. And then at 22, I came to the US as an au pair to help with a family with 3 children in Yarmouth, Maine. And so I grew up Catholic. In Poland, it's pretty standard. You just live it out. You do everything that you can think of being a Catholic, from baptism to going back to church dressed up on your first birthday, to communion, all of the above. So I actually primarily still pray in Polish, because if you think about it, the first 8 years of my life, I've been just trained all the prayers and all the routines. So I still pray in Polish in my mind. But so I've had my grandmothers and great grandmothers were very Catholic. They would go to church twice a day, morning and evening. If you would go to the Catholic church, which by the way, it's like really beautiful, but really cold in the winter, the men would sit on one side, the women would sit on the other side, and it would be a 2-hour mass. So I grew up with that. I mean, we wouldn't go religiously to church every Sunday, but it was part of our life. So what I loved about my upbringing is that my grandmother, both my grandmothers, my dad's mom, she was so religious, but she was so loving and would never be critical of anyone if you didn't do something that would be considered the Catholic way. And she would be open to have conversations with me about topics that were very, very much anti-Catholic beliefs. And she would never judge. So I always grew up with a very comfortable relationship with my religion, my faith, and with God. And it just was always something that has given me comfort, knowing that there is someone I can turn to, because I always knew that God was there. And so during teenage years, when your boyfriend breaks up with you, or you feel lonely, or your parents get divorced and you just don't know what to do, I remember just looking out the window into the sky and just communicate with God, because I knew he would be there. He was there for me, and I knew I could always turn to him. So I had a very healthy relationship with God. Now, I grew up with communion. I grew up with confession. So when I met Adam's approach always been more the Christian way. But as it speaks in this book, he had his journey with faith. So when we met, I mean, we were both believers. We did not go regularly to church. And then because we became parents so soon after getting married, and his medical issues with all that was going on have always been there since we met. We were just very busy with two little boys under, they're 14 months apart. So we were very busy. And I remember having neighbors come and invite us to go and visit their church. And I said, I can't envision taking our two little boys, like both under 2 years of age, to go to church and get dressed, get ready, wake up on time, feed everybody. And she's like, oh, no, we actually have like a daycare there. So now you got to understand, I'm still going from how the churches are in Europe and Catholic churches. There is no daycare where you drop your children off. So I remember our friends Christy and Steve said, oh no, we have a daycare where you drop your children off. And I was like, wait a minute, are you saying I drop them off and then I go and I can actually enjoy the sermon? She goes, yes. I said, wait, of course, we're coming. So I will be honest to say, the reason we started attending our church in Ossipee, New Hampshire, because that was a great way for me to get an hour and a half of freedom. I could drop them off, go upstairs, socialize, have a cup of coffee, and then enjoy the sermon. And then that was the reason, really. And so we fell in love with the church. Adam fell in love with the church, and then he immediately dove in to serving. And that led to starting a ministry at the church in New Hampshire, Celebrate Recovery.
It's so beautiful, and that's so real, especially as a mom with young kids. I remember those days where even just, getting any kind of break, they'd go down for a nap and it would just like breathe, breathe for a few minutes and just have some peace and quiet, or have a space that was just your own. So I understand that. Very relatable. And so your faith obviously was developed young and was strong and is still strong, and no doubt has helped you every step of the way through Adam's illness and his subsequent death and all of these pieces. And Adam also had his own faith and his own walk, and much of that he tells about in his story in the book. And then there's a moment where he is diagnosed with cancer. And I want to talk about that for a little bit too, because how many people out there listening are impacted by cancer? Every single one of us. I don't know if there's anybody out there in the world that doesn't have somebody they love who has not had some kind of interaction on some level with cancer. So let's talk about your journey, his journey with the diagnosis of cancer, and what happened with his health and with your life as a family from that moment.
So it came as a surprise. I'm not going to lie. Even though Adam has always had issues with his digestive system, his GI in particular. So he's had Crohn's disease. He early on, while we were dating, he has developed ulcerative colitis. So actually, one of the things while I was pregnant, a lot of times it was the opposite. Adam needed more care than I needed. So this was kind of like a little backwards. You know, I wasn't the one that got the foot massage because there was just so much more other important things going on. And so he's had a journey throughout our entire time together with medical issues related to his GI. So it's kind of become a part of our lives. And you know, as it is with life, you get busy, you have more stressful times, you're better about your diet. Because Adam was such a great cook and he understood food so well, it was very easy to stay on track with his diet and help him stay well. So then that particular Thanksgiving, we always joke that while I am not very religious about brushing my teeth every day, when I tell you Adam and I were very much opposites and yet so very compatible, I mean it. He would brush his teeth religiously twice a day, as most people do, and floss and just make sure. And we would go to the same dentist a day apart, because I would go one day so that he could be with the boys, and then he would go to the next day, and then I would be with the boys, and we would get two different feedbacks from the same hygienist. His feedback would be, how do you brush your teeth? Can you show me? I think we would recommend this toothbrush. We would like to see you twice a year, not once a year. And I would go in, and the first thing I would be told by the same hygienist, you have a very good hygiene. And I would laugh because I never floss. I brush my teeth only probably if I remember. And so Adam was just always mad, but we were always joking that my teeth were whiter than his. And so that Thanksgiving, I said, I'm not sure what's going on, but either your teeth are yellow or your skin is yellow. And we just noticed that he was very jaundiced. And so he went to the doctors on Monday right after Thanksgiving, and that led to the doctor saying you need to go to the emergency room. And then he went to the emergency room, and that led to them taking him by ambulance to the hospital in DC, which led for him to be there for 5 days. So very, very unexpected. And when he returned, he didn't even really share his entire diagnosis with me. He waited until, because he came back on Saturday, he waited until Monday when the boys went to school, and he said, I would like to have a family call with my sisters and dad. I said, okay. And so he didn't even tell me exactly the entire diagnosis. And so we were on I believe it was a group FaceTime call. And that's when he has disclosed to all of us that they found that he had bile duct cancer. And it just shows you who Adam is. He waited. He didn't panic. He didn't panic. He didn't freeze. He just was very at peace, even though it was so unexpected. And that started our journey with his cancer.
My mother passed away from gallbladder cancer, so I completely understand what that diagnosis can mean. The bile duct being right there next to your gallbladder and your liver. And clearly they must have told him fairly early on that it would be a terminal diagnosis. Is that right?
They immediately started with chemo and radiation. And they said that if we can shrink the tumor and have the portal vein added and the tumor removed, then the way to save him would be to find a living donor to get a liver transplant. Mm. And so we went through that journey of there's a points system when you're on a transplant list if you qualify. And so we were going through all the interviews with the hospital, whether or not he is a good candidate to even be considered by the hospital to be willing to do a transplant on him. I remember being on a Zoom call with all these people waiting for their turn, and it became very clear that it is to them as important for this to be a successful procedure and surgery, because if it's not, this is just hurting their statistic. Mm-hmm. So I remember looking at the screen of all the people on this Zoom call and thinking, well, okay, well, we're probably in good shape because he's young, he has things to live for. And then as we went into this interview, it became apparent that they dig deep when it comes to it, considering you to allow you to have this. Now, mind you, this is way before you even know if you have a donor. This is just saying, yes, we would like to operate on you. But they did ask things like, how is your faith? Mm-hmm. Which was surprising because this is such a touchy subject that they would ask that. How is your relationship with your family? Are you married? Do you have children? How is your marriage? Do you work? It's important to them because as we know, as we have discovered, those are important things as you go through challenges or any type of encounters. But it just made it real to me that even the hospitals think that's important to consider you being even a good candidate for them to operate on you. Do you have faith? Do you have things to live for? Do you enjoy living? Do you live to the fullest? And so ultimately we found a dear friend that was willing to donate her liver, which I think is admirable. And but unfortunately, right before we were able to have that happen, Adam's cancer spread. So, and once it spreads, they won't do that. So once it spread into the I forgot the term where it spread, but once it's spreads, they don't want to do that, which was sad. But this would have been the only way to save him. So once that was the case, they gave him a year to a year and a half. So we knew at this point this is going to just be a short term. But you never give up. So we never lived from that point on thinking, oh, well, let's mark it on the calendar and then see how we can live until then. And that is basically why it's so important, why I feel his story, our story, his journey, his testimony is so important, I believe, for everyone to read. Because as you said, we don't know anyone that hasn't been touched by someone or the disease, cancer disease of any kind. We know somebody. It may not be somebody in our family, but we know somebody that we care about. And so when you have a diagnosis with a precise timing, you have a couple choices. You have many choices, but primarily the choices are how you're going to spend that time. Mm. And so it just was, we lived our time together to the fullest. And I truly believe that the reason why we were able to make it to 3 years because that's how we lived, because the way we lived and the way we approached it. Because there was medically nothing that there was, we tried to go to NIH and be part of some research or some testings and trials and stuff, but we didn't even qualify. His condition, his situation was so bad that he didn't even qualify to that. The numbers were so bad, but you would never know. You would never know.
I can't help but think somebody out there listening to this is either coping right now with a terminal diagnosis or knows somebody who is. And the hope that you just spoke about is something that they so desperately are looking for. And so based on what you lived through and that moment where you together had to make a choice, how are we going to spend these last days? What would you say to somebody who's in that same predicament right now? How do they make that choice? What do they do within themselves? How do they get to that decision to live it fully?
Well, the first decision that is going to ultimately come from within you is, are you scared? Are you angry? Are you in control? So if you answer all of those with yes, you are correct. Because if you're not, you're lying. You can't tell me you're not scared. You can't tell me you're not angry. And you can't tell me that there's something in you that says, I'm in control. And now you can decide if you're in control of whether it's what doctor you're going to, whether you're going to agree to this surgery or not the other, whether you're going to get moved across the country and go be treated by different doctors in a different state, whether you're going to take the holistic approach. You have control. Absolutely. So the difference is, are you in control of the destiny, the plan that has already been written? The script that has already been written for us? And the answer is no. So if I would give you a golden ticket and say, this ticket is for you to take and know that everything that is going to unfold is within already an established plan. All you have to do is sit back, enjoy, and make the best of it. And when I say enjoy, you can find joy in even the hardest things. So yes, it's easy to enjoy when life is, giving you all these beautiful blessings and everything is working out. And you're like, oh, that's a great plan. I like that. I can get on board with that plan, God. But then there are the plans that were not so much in agreement, which is fine. But that's when we decide to micromanage. That's when we decide to either sabotage or get, just try and bang our heads against the wall and make it harder. So if I give you that ticket and said, please enjoy whatever comes your way, and just know that there's nothing you can really do to change it other than live to the fullest, embrace it, and then be open to those signs, such as getting that call that there's a piece of land for sale. We weren't looking to build. We weren't looking to move. Are you kidding me? At that point, I had, the day Adam came home from the hospital, we prepaid and put a deposit down on a new puppy. Because at that point we had a 13-year-old, a 13-year-old, I believe, yes, a 13-year-old Labrador, a 3-year-old Labrador. And so we knew that the 13-year-old will probably not live much longer. So we decided to get another chocolate lab. So that day Adam came home from the hospital, the puppy was delivered. Which, by the way, if you ever are finding yourself in a health issue and you're scared, you're angry, have a puppy. Everything just evaporates. Holding a chocolate bundle of 9 pounds, Labrador puppy with soft ears, that has brought so much joy for us during that time. You forget everything. So I had 3 dogs, 2 preteens, a house, and a sick husband, and a bunch of cars. Let's not forget that. So no, we weren't looking to build ever. But once you are allowing yourself to sit back and take and go with the flow and know that things will happen and come to you as they're meant to be, there's no coincidence that you're going to meet somebody and that person then meets or introduces you to something, or that phone call or that book that you grab while you're flying at the airport. There's no coincidence. So once you know that everything that comes to you is not by coincidence. Adam had there was a discussion for him to go to Hopkins, but the reason why he did not get taken to Hopkins was because they had no free beds. So instead, they took him to Georgetown. As it turns out, that was the best thing that could have happened to us. Georgetown is an incredible place, specialized in liver cancer and bile duct cancer. I mean, we were in incredible hands. We could have micromanaged that and said, no, we're only going to Georgetown. That was decided for us. It was decided for us. And because I said, do you want a second opinion? And Adam said, no. I was meant to go to Hopkins, but they couldn't take me because they had no beds. So there was a reason why I went to Georgetown. And so when you have that peace and comfort within you, knowing that everything that comes to you is because it's genuinely meant for the best of you, embrace it. And then you just go with the flow. And then you have also more of an awareness of all the signs that are coming to you. And so you're not fighting it, you're embracing it, and you have more comfort. So then there's less fear. I would say throughout the entire time, Adam and I, we've never felt afraid. We never felt angry. We cried only once after we were told that he only had 1.5 years. I remember driving home and we were in the middle of designing the house, and one of the designs we had a front porch with a swing, and I said, that's what we're going to be sitting on and growing old together. And he always wanted a porch. And so I said, we cried in the car because I said, I'm just sad that we are not going to grow old together, swinging on that porch. But that was the only time we had sadness throughout the time, because we knew this was there's a reason why it's happening, and that we are meant to genuinely live to the fullest and not have any regrets, and be as a team and do it together, and just be open with it. And not, like, we told our children throughout this 3 years, always everything. And we shared monthly updates on a YouTube link where people could just check and see that there was an updated video that came from Adam. They could see how he looks. They can hear him. They can see if he has the spark in his eyes. And so we felt that that was the easiest way to share with the world and friends and family where his progress was. And the children always knew, and we always incorporated the children. So there was no fear, there was no uncertainty. And I think that is the biggest tool that I would like to share with the world, that if you could have that peace of knowing that it's all already been predetermined and you just have to trust that God has everything planned for you with the best intention, with the purpose that has been predetermined for you, and with love, it's so much easier to just embrace and go with it. It doesn't mean that it's not sad. It doesn't mean that you're adjusting time and period. It doesn't mean you're going to have challenging teenagers or challenging neighbors. It just doesn't mean that. It's just it's there to teach you something.
It's such a great message on so many levels. I think that's the very real questions of, are you scared? Are you angry? Are you in control? Which, whether you're facing terminal diagnosis or whether you're facing a challenging coworker or whether you're facing a possible career shift or competing in the biggest game of your life or whatever it is, whatever that challenge is in your life, when you can sit back and answer those questions honestly and then go to that next question, which is, are you really in control of the bigger picture?
And you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You are not in control of the bigger picture. And one of the biggest questions that we've been asked frequently was, why would something like that happen to a great person like Adam?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember early on, Adam and I would say, why not? Why not me? And people would look at us and I said, well, why not him? Do you have somebody better in mind? That question is just such a weird question. What I know what people are trying to say, this is such, this shouldn't happen to somebody this amazing. I get it. But when you say, why not? That means, why wouldn't God choose Adam? Why wouldn't God choose us to go through this? Because there's definitely something we're supposed to learn from it. And if you can look outside of it and find a way to serve others and enjoy still your life to the fullest while you're at it, why not Adam? I mean, it was very apparent to us. I said, why wouldn't God choose Adam? This is like the best person he could have chosen. And so then when Adam had the near-death experience, I immediately was like, this is why. For all those questions, all those people that had the question in their minds, this is why. God chose him because the big plan, the biggest plan he had already predetermined for Adam was to continue to serve, to continue to have faith in him, and to continue to still follow his passion, still do the things that Adam would do if he would still be sitting next to us, just on much deeper, much greater, much more Adam-like way.
And I end that part one with angel sprinkles. Those are the goosebumps I get when somebody says something to me and I can just feel every bit of the emotion that they're sharing. So this is part one. You've heard the beginning of the story. You've heard about Adam's illness. You've learned more about his family and the things that were important to him. So with that, I close out part one, and we'll be back soon with part two.